Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. It's soon going to be on Apple Podcasts, a whole bunch of other places as well. But in the meantime, you're here with us, and I'm the host, Blaine Greenfield, in my Zoom studio here in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ron Solomon. Dr. Solomon, you can wave to all your fans who are watching this.
Hi
Okay,
there.
and that's Dr. Solomon. Dr. Solomon comes to us this week thanks to his friendship with my producer, Cappy Tassetti. And he and his wife have known Cappy for 43 years, and many years before that is friends with Cappy's husband. Oh, neat, Jim, who I never had the pleasure of meeting. Ron is a retired doctor of optometry in private practice for 44 years, with 3 years before that as an optometrist at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. He's retired but still involved in helping people with their eye care as a volunteer and as a part-time doctor at various clinics in town. And we're talking about town, we're talking about where you live, Dr. Solomon, and that's where.
Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Okay. Now, as a kid, where'd you grow up?
I was born and raised in Philadelphia
Oh,
and,
okay.
and lived there until I completed all of my education and then went into the military as was required back in those days. And I got very, very lucky and was assigned as one of the optometrists at the hospital of the Air Force Academy. That's what brought us to Colorado Springs.
Now, when you were in Philadelphia, were you in Philadelphia proper or the suburbs?
Now, I was in Philadelphia
Okay.
proper.
So I kind of spent a lot of time, worked and lived in Bucks County, outside of Philadelphia.
Right.
And so those were, past life I was there, and I taught outside of there as well. And so you were a kid, Ron, you were growing up in the Philadelphia area. Did you always know you wanted to be an optometrist?
Well, it started when I was a young child because I was the youngest of three, and there was a large separation between my other two siblings, both of whom are deceased now. But my sister was married to an optometrist, and she was the oldest of the family. And they lived in a little town outside of Pittsburgh. And when I was a little kid, they would have me come out. They kind of lived in the country, and I spent time there. And he used to let me hang around his office, and I began to develop an interest in it at that point, and it stuck with me. I did wander a little bit from that because my undergraduate degree from the University of Pittsburgh is in psychology, because along the way I thought, well, maybe I would rather be involved in clinical psychology. I finished that degree, but then I decided that optometry was more my home.
But that's really cool, like you said, because not too many kids develop an interest in the field, I guess, at the age when you did.
No, I was early.
Okay. And so you then went to school for psychology, and then you went for your graduate work, I guess, in optometry.
Correct.
Okay. And so when you joined the service, did you know that, were you already an optometrist by then?
Yes, I was an optometrist, and when I was taken into the military, I was commissioned as an officer, as an optometrist, and assigned to the hospital that I mentioned before.
Okay, how cool is that? So that was your first work as an optometrist in the service?
That's correct.
Because a friend of mine did the same kind of thing as a dentist. Great way to get into the field, though, isn't it? To get.
Well, it's a remarkable way to get in the field because, as you know, when you open up a private practice, they're not standing in line usually
Right.
when you first open the door. But in the military, my first day there, I had a full component of patients. And when I showed up at the clinic, I had a whole full schedule. And it was that way for the entire 3 years that I was on active duty.
So talk about that when you got out of active duty, all of a sudden then you're looking for a job. Did you start off as an optometrist or did you work for somebody initially?
Now, I started out with my own private practice and started to make plans for that in the final year of military service. And my wife and I were so in love with the region. I don't know if you've ever been to Colorado Springs, but we were so in love with this community. After a year and a half or two, we both decided this would be a good place to make our home and to start a practice. And that's the way it happened.
That was kind of cool though, because when you started practice, you were kind of young at the time, weren't you?
Yeah, I was in my late 20s.
Okay, and to start an optometry practice, how was that experience for you? in terms of starting it off?
Well, when I first started out, it was difficult because I tried to keep my practice, as I always did thereafter, in an upscale professional manner. And it took a lot of time for word of mouth from one patient to the other to develop a following, but it worked. But it took the first few years. It was a little quiet, a little difficult, but it kept building and building. And I felt very fortunate to be able to practice in this town and to be successful with it.
And what's interesting about what you just said, Dr. Solomon, is the fact that when you were getting your practice off the ground, there was no such thing as doctors advertising. There was no, it wasn't considered professional, you know?
It was against the rules. That's right.
Exactly. So for an optometrist to get off the ground, like you said, the only way you could get it was by one patient at a time, I guess, seeing you one person
Exactly.
at a
And
time.
get active in the community. People get to know me, and that's how I did it.
So now, your practice then, was it in an office or was it with a group with other people or just yourself?
I was in a medical complex in a private office, and part of it was like a little shopette area where they had different stores, and then there was a big medical building, and I was in the big medical building, which was brand new. So all of the doctors who came into that, usually primary care physicians, OBGYN, so forth, most of them were either young in practice or maybe they'd been going for 2-3 years, but nobody had been there a long time.
So you were then starting to practice with a lot of them at the same time. So that was probably a good way to build a practice as well.
Yeah, we had a few dentists in our building, right?
Now, were you in the same building all your practice? Did you say there?
No, I moved. I was in the original building 14 years. And then I outgrew it, and the town was moving geographically in a different direction. The population was moving in a different direction. So I decided to move, and I had two offices. One where I moved to was at that point one of the furthest north parts of Colorado Springs. Now the town has grown so large that it's more like the middle. And I rented space in a medical building with a number of physicians. And then after about 7 years, I got the urge to have more space, and the property next to our building was available. So I was able to buy the building and have it constructed to my liking. And then I was there for another 20-some years until I left the practice.
Now, in your practice, were you the only optometrist or were there other folks with you?
To start with, I was. When I left, there were a total of 4, including myself. It was my practice, and I had 3 other young optometrists in the practice.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about then the practice of optometry, Dr. Solomon, in terms of people going to eye doctors. And one of the, I guess, sad thing is that some people don't go to eye doctors either ever or not enough, you know. Talk to me
Right.
about, let's kind of talk about different ages. Why is it important, and it may sound like a dumb question to you, but I'll ask it anyway. Why is it important for somebody to go to eye doctor on a regular basis, which I do, by the way?
There are a number of problems, both either visually, optically, or medically, that pop up on a person, but in the early stages, they have no signs or symptoms. And as is in the case of many medical problems or maladies, the earlier it can be detected, in a lot of cases, the better chance you have to correct it. That doesn't mean to make it go away, but to make it so that you are functional. Because if you, for example, you show up as a little kid, you show up as a nearsighted little kid and you can't see across the street, there's not a much chance of that to go away on its own. But you have to have it monitored, and monitor it yearly with a little kid, because, for example, with that scenario I just mentioned, they may not complain. It's so much better with their glasses than they're without, that with the glasses, if it's starting to slip a little bit, they don't recognize it because it's such a vast difference between with or without the glasses. When it comes to older people, and in particular what we would call the aging group, there are a number of diseases that you mentioned earlier in the program, like macular degeneration, glaucoma, cataracts, that in the beginning they're not a lot of symptom. And a person can have cataracts, which I'll explain to you in depth here a little bit, that's located in a position that it's out of the central line of sight. So a person's got this cataract, but they don't know it's there. Now, I can't make it go away, but I can work around it with proper lenses and proper advice on how to take care of themselves. And that's the important part of early detection, whether it's your eyes or anything else.
How often should somebody be seeing an eye doctor?
The usual number that we present is every 2 years if there's no problem. But it varies with groups. For example, with little kids, if they show a sign of changing or they have a significant family history of eyesight problems, we want to see them every year rather than every 2 years because heredity plays such a big role in all of this. In the case of things like diabetes or glaucoma or macular degeneration, frequently in the beginning, they don't have any symptoms. So for those folks, once they get past the age of 50, we generally would tell them every year. At the most 2 years if they're clear of all these problems, but otherwise every year is adequate. That doesn't mean those aging process that their eyeglass prescription or contact lens prescription going to change every year. It's just to keep tabs on the whole the whole ocular system that we look at when we examine your eyes, inside and out.
As a kid, I remember in school, I don't know if they still do this, Dr. Solomon, but they check my vision every year in school. You know, it'd be part of
Right.
it. Do they still do that in schools?
Yeah, they do. I have, having participated years ago, I was able, along with some of my fellow colleagues here, to set up a vision screening in the public school system here in Colorado Springs. Most eye tests in school where you can read the eye chart or you can't read the eye chart.
Right.
But there are other things that can be screened for in a school setting, like color vision and depth perception in situations like that. And a lot of the school, depends on a school district. It depends on the number of people they have that can help them out. By that, I mean, in today's world, most of the public schools don't have a nurse assigned to
Sure.
just one school. It used to be when we were kids,
Sure.
every school had their own nurse. They don't have that so much anymore. So they depend on volunteer parents and things like that to be taught how to do these screenings. And so you do what you can do, but we try to emphasize to the family when that is done, that's not an eye examination. That's a screening.
Good
And it
point.
doesn't substitute for a complete eye examination. You have to go to somebody's office to get that.
Well, you mentioned something too that I understand now can be helped. But when I was a kid, I was colorblind. I still am to this day. But now all of a sudden, people are colorblind. They can be helped a little bit with that.
Well, it's not real successful.
Okay.
They a number of years ago, somebody invented a contact lens system
Right.
where you fit a contact lens with a particular color in the red family in one eye only. And then with the light going through that red colored lens, and then the normal light that comes into your eye and the other eye would mix and they would get some semblance of color. I did quite a few of those. I don't think it's done very much anymore. And in most cases, it worked pretty well. The reason it would be no longer be a success was the person looked a little strange because they had this one red contact lens
Right.
in one eye, nothing in the other eye. It looked a little bizarre. And people would resent that. It also was when back in the days when we had contact lenses that are called the hard lenses.
Right.
And were much more difficult to get used to, although lots and lots of people did. In today's world, it's all the soft lenses. I mean, some people still wear the rigid lenses, but in the case of patients new to contact lenses, it's almost entirely done in soft. And as far as I know, they don't have any of that kind of color mixing in the soft lenses. They have tinted soft lenses, but not for that purpose. The tinted soft lenses they have are to enhance your appearance, in your view.
Well, one of the problems I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but with people saying eye doctors, is that to me it's a real shame that all not covered like 100% or even covered anything. I know when I was teaching college and I was involved in the benefits for my helping the teachers get benefits, try as we might, vision wasn't an automatic inclusion in the list of stuff that's covered. I don't know about you, but to me, there's something wrong with that.
Well, when I started practice in my private practice in 1965, the number of insurance plans that covered eye care was zero.
Okay,
There were none, but that has improved remarkably now, and most of them have some type of a program, and so does Medicaid, and Medicare's had a program for a long time. It may not cover 100%, but it covers a good bulk of it now. But they have their limitations,
okay,
and they keep changing back and forth to different things. But most of them, there's a lot of insurance companies that promote their insurance program in the healthcare field by promoting the fact that, hey, we'll take care of your eyesight problems as well as your broken arm or whatever. And that's helped a lot because it set up a competition from one insurance company to the other because, hey, these guys are giving eye care, we better start doing that to attract the clients.
But you would think that'd be such a basic thing, that you want.
Well, we thought it was, but of course we were labeled as prejudiced.
Right. No, but I'm saying, not only that, but hearing the same kind of thing, that people should be able to see and hear,
Exactly.
and that you're not covered. But it's funny, we're talking about aging, and I now qualify in that category too. I know it's hard to believe. You look at me and
Oh, of course not.
I tell people, Dr. Solomon, what is it? I'm 73, but most people don't think I'm a day older than 72. But all of a sudden, I'm getting older. Yet, I guess you may have heard of this somewhat. Optometrists, in particular, in Florida or in aging communities, have a real problem because when people go in and tell me if you've heard about this as well, some optometrists are very reluctant to see them in the sense that if they flag them as not being able to drive or can't see, that's helpful, but they're also going to get, some optometrists get a bad rap because they're the guys who flunked, so-and-so. Have you ever heard that kind of complaint?
Not much. I mean, people don't like to receive bad news.
Right, exactly.
But that was never much of a problem with me. What we were just talking about before was the real problem of why doesn't my insurance company cover this? Well, that's been eased quite a bit now. And but for what the example that you just gave, yeah, there's some people that think that maybe if I hadn't put them in glasses, that they wouldn't have gotten worse.
Right.
And that's just an old wives' tale. It doesn't happen that way.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about then this aging process and what does happen. And I know that for some reason, whenever I go to my optometrist, who I like, and I go on a regular basis, I go once a year, I think we see him. He says that I'm going to eventually need cataract surgery. How does he know? How does he know that, or is that just an aging thing?
Yeah, it's the thing that I always told patients.
Yeah.
Is if you live long enough, you're going to get a cataract. Now, the difference is some people don't. The cataract doesn't progress rapidly enough to bother them before they leave this earth. And then you have some people get a cataract and it stands still for a while and before it begins to increase in its density. In case your listeners don't know, a cataract there's a little structure in the eye called the crystalline lens, which sits right behind the color part of your eye. And under normal circumstances, it's crystal clear like this glass I'm wearing on my face. But when it begins to turn white or yellowish or yellow-gray, that's a cataract. And it can start anywhere. The little lens inside your eye is no bigger than an aspirin, but it can occur in any of the different positions, either the front of the lens, the back part of the lens, the middle of the lens, whatever. And in some areas, it affects the vision much more rapidly than another. For example, if your cataract starts way out on the side, it may take a long time before the density of that opacity moves in that it really annoys you. On the other hand, if it starts in the middle, or particularly the middle toward the back of the lens, that's a very much more rapid diminution of your vision. and you'll end up being annoyed much more quickly. And cataract surgery, I don't know what the latest number, a couple of years ago, they printed a number that in the United States alone, there's about 3 million cataract operations a year. And that number will go up, not down, as the population ages. But it's strictly, it can be produced by other problems. It can be produced by certain diseases. For example, you mentioned diabetes, which we'll talk about. Well, one of the potential side effects of diabetes is cataract. It can be a side effect of certain medicines, in particular steroids. Persons on oral steroids for a long time, they run a great, that doesn't mean everybody on steroids is going to get a cataract, but some people will. And then certain diseases that people have will produce that, or certainly injuries and so forth. So there's a lot of reasons, but far and away, the most common reason is you had enough birthdays.
And talk about age-wise. So is there a certain age that this starts becoming noticeable?
Usually most cataracts 60 and beyond, but you certainly in practice, you see them in younger ages than that. But the vast majority of them are going to be 60 or older. And the older you get, and if you haven't had one, the less chance is, unless you're going to be live to be 100 or so. But in my own case, I'm pretty lucky. I'm in my mid 80s and I don't have any sign of it. Who knows what'll happen? Things can change quickly, but it just varies from person to person. Family history has something to do with it.
Now, is that something I notice as the patient, or my eye doctor is going to notice it?
If it's off to the side of the little focusing lens that I mentioned,
Right.
you may not notice it, but when he or she dilates your pupils and looks in there, they'll see it.
Okay.
But then when your pupil comes down to normal size, it covers it up. If it happens in other areas, you'll notice it. There are a variety of symptoms and reasons you get. One of the more common one is that if you're already wearing glasses, the person will come in and tell me, I must clean my glasses 15 times a day. Well, the glasses aren't dirty. It's the natural lens of the eye, but they don't know that. And unless somebody looks at them, they don't know.
Because,
So,
because I don't feel, my eyes feel okay to me, and vision is okay, but it just, every year he says, he checks, I guess, cataracts, and he'll know when it's time for me to get
you'll
surgery.
see it. Yeah, and he'll know. A lot of the decision is when you have something done with it, you or any patient, is you. By that, I mean, different people are bothered by different amounts of change in their bodies. And the same is true in cataracts. And there are some people, the slightest little change in their vision, they can you get that rid of me? I get that out of my eye. I can't see with that. And yet their vision maybe is 20/30, which isn't real bad. But if they were used to better than 20/20 vision, 20/30, they have a really decidedly a worse opinion of what their vision is than they actually test for. And then you have people who, when the vision keeps subsiding, it gets really bad and they deny that they're having any problem, because somewhere in their head, they have this idea that I don't want anybody to do surgery on me, even though the cataract surgery has immense success, 97% uncomplicated success rate with cataract surgery. And the technique today is so unique. It's done as an outpatient and the surgeon's in and out of your eye in 15 minutes. And later that day, you already see. And so, but people you mentioned surgery to a person, some people that freaks them out. And so a lot of times we ask the patient, how do you feel about your vision? Are you being handicapped? Does it bother you when you drive? Do you have difficulty at night? Because having a change in your vision at night is common to age. The eye doesn't function as well in darkness as you get older. Well, if you have a cataract there, it's even worse. And so that'll bother people, and they may want to have the lens removed. One person might want it removed sooner than you would want it removed if your attitude is different.
Talk about something else that bothers me, and I guess something just comes through the turf. But all my life, I had, pretty good vision. I needed glasses for distance, but now all of a sudden, Dr. Solomon, I'm having trouble reading stuff, and so Now, for the first time, my wife just got me a pair of reading glasses the other day. How do you make that decision? I guess when it's time to even go beyond the reading glass. At first, I was using magnifying glass. Then I was getting the reading glasses. When do you make that decision that maybe you should get glasses all the time? Or
Well, the usual reason is convenience, because when you're wearing only a reading glass prescription, which for many people works just fine,
right?
but as soon as you look up, you have to either look over
Yeah,
the glasses or take them off.
exactly.
So after a while, the people will come in without me even suggesting it to them. They say, I think I'd rather get a bifocal. This would drive me crazy. Because when you first start out, you may not need them to read every single thing that you look at.
Exactly. Yeah.
But as you get older, that problem gets worse. And so you're jerking your glasses on an awful lot. So even though your vision at a distance may still be good, the bifocal gives you more convenience because you can put them on and leave them on and go about your business. You don't have to fool with them.
But you know what's incredible, Dr. Solomon, is how difficult businesses and industries make it for people, specifically with respect to two things. One, the size of labels is like shrinking, as we speak. I don't know if you notice that, but some labels are just like impossible to read. And then the worst thing, even as bad as that is, then some people have the great idea to put black print on a red background, which is like, for me, almost impossible to read.
Yeah, it should be on a white background.
Yeah, almost everything, people use the black print on a white background. But have you seen that too, where you see some people just can't read it because the way the label is
There's
made?
not enough contrast.
Yeah, no contrast.
Yeah, there's zero contrast. And yeah, that happens. And it does happen. Like designers do that. Why they feel they have to do that on a label, I don't know. That's not the part I'm observing when I decide, gee, that's a nice shirt you have on. I can't, I don't know what's inside the label.
But by the way, it's a very nice shirt you're wearing, just as a
Thank you.
compliment. But even worse though is when it's on medical, stuff or prescriptions, or you buy over the counter stuff and you just can't read the label. It's just, to me, it's incredible. Talk about a couple of things people can look forward to. I guess it's an age related too. But I mentioned to you off the air that a friend of ours has now macular degeneration, which isn't, a fun thing to deal
Macular
with.
degeneration
What is
is
it?
one of the real problems. As our populations increase in age, it becomes more apparent. Now, many, many years ago, there were probably percentage-wise just as many people with macular degeneration. But back in those early 1900s, even up to maybe the mid 1900s, the techniques for determining it were not near as good as they are now. So people might have had it then, but they didn't know it, neither did the doctor. Now the techniques and the science is so profoundly better. We have such phenomenal instruments that we can use, as well as to dilating the pupil and looking in at the macula, that it's much more obvious to us that this is what the diagnosis is. And as people live longer, the population that is most likely to contract macular degeneration is more available because they're living longer. People, living in the mid 80s or early 90s, 100 and so forth. And it's a devastating problem. And I just spend a couple minutes tell you just a couple basics about it, is that there's several different types but there's two types of macular degeneration that account for probably 95% of all the cases. You might have heard these terms, that one is called dry macular degeneration and one is called wet macular degeneration. Now, of the two, the macula, for the listeners who don't know, the macula is the part of your retina in the back of your eye that has the most critical vision. That is the clearest point of vision on the whole eye. It also has cells for color in it. Now, even though it's small, it is so crucial to your vision. If something happens through the way of injury or disease, even a slight change is going to reduce your vision. Now, how much it will progress as the degeneration develops depends on whether it's wet or dry. The dry type is very slowly progressive. We can't make it go away, but we try to control the advancement of it through the use of a lot of vitamin therapy. And you don't hear a lot of people in the medical community tell you that you're going to get better if you take vitamins. Well, this is the idea of the vitamins that has been proven over and over again. That certain combinations of vitamins definitely slow this down. So the time is on your side, but you're not going to make it go away. And in some people, it'll get worse more rapidly than others. In some people, it stays mild and never reaches a point where it's a danger to them. By a danger, I mean, once that vision in most states, I'm sure North Carolina is probably the same way. In most states, if you're still driving a car and you develop macular degeneration, if your vision isn't at least 20/40 or better, you're not going to get a license, because then it becomes detrimental to you and other drivers if your vision is 20/50, 20/60, and the doctor can't get it any better than that because of the degeneration is in there. That's not safe to drive. And that brings back to one of the things you were talking about before. That sometimes doesn't sit very well with the patient. Nobody likes to hear that. But and they may have bad things to say about you because you told them that, but you have to know about it. The other type is called wet, and what that is you get what's known as neovascularization, and that long term means you have new blood vessel growth where it's not supposed to be growing, and that's over on top of the macula. And in fact, it may actually, some of them may break and bleed. Now, although that is the most devastating of the types of macular degeneration, it has some treatments that involve injections into the eye, but injections of medicines that have come out in recent years that really slow that down. It may reverse it a little bit. Again, won't make it go away. But it used to be with the wet type, if you had that from start to finish, you wouldn't last very long before your vision was gone. And so now with these injections, a trick of it is, though, early detection, and not to think if your glasses are, or if your vision's a little fuzzy, boy, these glasses must be scratched or dirty. Well, they may be, but it may be your macula. And so there's a greater chance to treat that when it's the worst kind of macular degeneration. Nobody in the field, you don't wish a person to have the worst kind, but at least with that, something can be done about it more decisively and dramatically than taking vitamins. But the vitamins work on the type that's called the dry type. It is one of the leading causes of blindness in the world, actually, but particularly in the United States, among particularly the senior population. There are some younger people that develop it, but that's not the usual. The usual is the Medicare group.
And back to your point, some people don't realize it, but you said, having to give up driving, but in reality, it's so much less expensive too, in terms of, that's why they invented Uber, so
right,
instead
right.
of hire an Uber driver 5 days a week even, it's still going to be so much less expensive than buying a car, gas, insurance, the whole 9 yards.
I think that people have a problem with it, even though if they recognize everything you just said, which is true, they're giving up their independence. Right. That's what bothers them. It's hard to tell somebody that, but you have to tell them the truth.
We're running up against the clock. The one area I want to talk to you about is the fact that people with diabetes have lots of vision problems as well.
Right.
Just real quick, what's that all about?
Well, in diabetes, there are changes that affect the blood vessel system, from the inability of the body to digest and to metabolize sugar, and so substances like that in bread and cookies and all the sweet kind of stuff. It can't metabolize it, right? And so they have to give oral pills if they can. There's a lot of them out there now. If that doesn't work, then they need to go on insulin injections so that they can digest the sugar better, instead of it spilling over into the blood system and not getting out of there. Now, a lot of diabetic changes in the eye are more associated with how long you're diabetic as opposed to the severity of it. And so a person who has a pretty good case of it right off the bat, yeah, they're going to notice a vision change a little sooner than if it wasn't a real severe case. But a lot of times we'll look into the eyes of a person like that, and we're talking about on the retina, and you don't see anything. But what occurs on the retina, to more directly answer your question, is that you get little pinpoint hemorrhages. They're called petechial, which is like a little dot hemorrhage that goes around. That's stage one. And stage two is when the blood vessels begin to narrow down and they pinch off in different places. And then stage three is the diabetes and the changes as it's causing in the blood system causes secretions to get out onto the retina and scar the retina. And you can't get rid of them. They're not reversible. And if they end up near the macula area that we talked about before, you got big problems with your vision. And a lot of people with when I read articles or figures that come out from the National Institute of Health or different organizations, there's like a running contest of which has caused the most cases of blindness here this year, diabetes or macular degeneration. And it goes back and forth, back and forth. The bottom line is the macular degeneration and or diabetes are leading causes of blindness as we get older. And early detection, as is the case, whether it's your eyes or some other disease in your body, early detection gives the providers the best chance to at least control it, or in some cases they can reverse it, but not the diabetic retinopathy won't go backwards.
But your point's well taken, and kind of we'll conclude on that, is that I hear you urging people, almost regardless of age, but certainly as they get older, that they should be seeing an eye doctor on at least a fairly regular basis.
Right.
And if they're not, it's still not too late to start. Just get into an eye doctor because he or she can help you.
Right. That's the only way that you'll be able to be helped. And then when they get into areas where the macular degeneration, for example, is really obstructing their vision, which means that even with changing to glasses, you don't get much improvement. There are many devices that are out there in what's called low vision, meaning vision that can't be corrected normally with regular glasses. That they don't help everybody, but they help a lot of people. Unless you get to somebody, you're not going to know about that.
Dr. Solomon, if anybody wanted to get in touch with you with a follow-up question or reach you, what's the best bet?
Well, the best bet would be email.
Okay.
And I'll give you that, or I think you have it.
But share it with people who might be watching or listening to this.
It's Elron, and it's spelled ELRON3 @MSN.com.
Okay.
And the only thing I would suggest to people who might use that to contact me is to title your email with something that pertains to my field, because if it just says Joe Blow on there, I don't know who Joe Blow is, I probably won't open it.
I'm with you completely on that. Good advice. One last time, that email was what?
ELRON3 @MSN.com.
An excellent bit of advice you just gave at the very end. You want to reach Dr. Solomon or anybody else, use that subject line and make sure you identify a Blaine's World listener or a question about eye health or whatever, but great advice. Anyway, Dr. Ron Solomon, I'd like to thank you for being my guest this first half hour on the Blaine's World Show. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure meeting you, and thank you so much for having me. I hope it's been helpful.
Very helpful, sir. Okay, as Dr. Solomon works his way out of the studio, we'll see if we can bring in our next guest, and there they are. That's one of them. Okay, we see Lisa, and we'll bring in our next guest, and there's Claire. Hey, guys.
Hi.
Let me just tell people before I introduce you to folks that you're watching or listening, as the case may be, to the Blaine's World podcast. We're heard at least weekly, sometimes more, on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. And it's a chance for people to meet all sorts of different folks. And my next two guests are Lisa Fox and Clare Owensby, and the owners of a place called Cats at Play Cafe. And I'd like to, first of all, have you folks wave to all your fans and friends who might be watching. So that's Lisa at top and Claire. And I'm so excited to have you on board because I've been kind of looking forward to speaking to you for a long time. But I should mention that Lisa and Claire are the owners of Cats at Play Cafe. And it's a place that's going to be opening in downtown Asheville, hopefully in the near future. It's a boutique and rescue lounge, a stylist, I love it, and cozy foster home for 12 to 18 cats located in the heart of downtown Asheville. So the first question I always ask people when they come on board, when you were both little girls, I guess, were you cat owners at that time? Have you always been a cat owner? Okay.
Yes.
So when was the first cat you ever had? Do you remember?
My first cat that I really remember was an orange cat named Madison. We got him like at a gas station from the back of a pickup truck in Madison County. And he was amazing. He was very feisty and would jump out and bite at my little kindergarten legs as I came down the walk of the house every day. But I loved him.
How old were you?
I think I was like 4 when we got him. I know we had cats before, but that was like the one first that I felt like was mine.
Okay. And Lisa, the same thing too. How old was your first cat?
Actually, I
What
think
year?
I was in high school before we had our first cat. We had dogs in our family before then. So we only had one kitty cat, but it was in our adult lives, my husband and I, that we have had many cats. So we are longtime animal lovers.
Okay. And is that, by the way, a picture of your first cat next to you on your left there? Oh, that's
No,
not-
but I do have a gray tabby cat named Casper that he's in here with me, but he's a little camera shy at the moment.
Okay, so if he shows up, you can feel free to.
He shows up, it's Casper.
Okay, and Claire, do you have some cats floating around there?
No, this is just a fun background I found, but one of my cats is sitting in the window across from me, but she is napping, so she probably won't be joining us.
Okay, but she can. She's more than welcome to. And let me ask you both a question. I sometimes discuss it with my wife, just in general, that people own cats. It's sometimes a good idea, or what's your feeling about having more than one cat? You know, you can have, I guess, a single cat or 2 cats. Do you have a feeling about that?
I think
Sometimes-
having more than one cat is great.
No, but my wife, I haven't convinced my wife of that yet, you know. But
Well-
you have one cat?
I have 2. I will say that I do think having more than one cat is great, but I'm a case study in how it can be challenging. I have a cat that's 8 and a cat that's 4, and the 8-year-old cat was 4 when I got the other one, and he has not really taken to her. But that's not the case for a lot of cats, but it's definitely a good idea if you can, to get cats that are bonded together, 2 kittens, or, 2 adult cats that already get along. And also just like educating yourself on the best way to introduce them is really important.
And Lisa, the same thing too. How many cats do you have?
Currently, we have 4 cats and 4 dogs. And I do agree that having more cats, more than one cat at a time is better for the cat if the cat agrees, like Claire said, because Bixby does not like Bijou. We have a 9-year-old cat, Casper, who's in here with me, who currently doesn't really totally love Cleo, Jojo, and Simon. But if you do rescue 2 cats at one time, whether they're kittens or adult cats, it is better for them because they have company all the time.
Because yeah, same thing too. We've always had multiple cats, but our last cat was an elder cat. It was, I think, 14 when we got her. So my wife never wanted to bring in another cat at that point in time, until she passed. But let's then talk a little bit about this. So you had cats as kids, you had cats as adults. What was the idea of coming up with how did you come up with the idea then to start a cat cafe?
You go
I mean,
ahead, Claire.
I had just seen cat cafes around, like visited one, and then I've always loved the idea of being involved in starting a business of some sort. And I first kind of started looking into it spring of 2020. I was actually about to go to another cat cafe to do a little bit more research, and then the whole world shut down, so kind of put it on the back burner, but then reached out to the Humane Society a little over a year ago, and that's how Lisa and I joined up. The person we spoke with said, there's someone else who's interested. Would you, be into partnering up? And I was like, 100%, this is a huge venture.
Oh, so that's Lisa. That's how you got involved. You hadn't known each other beforehand.
We had not. We met through the animal rescue world through Meredith Pitcairn, who had worked at the Asheville Humane Society. So the Asheville Humane Society had done a pop-up cat cafe years past, and Brother Wolf actually in 2015 had tried or looked into opening a cat cafe. They are actually the ones who got the Asheville City Ordinance defined a cat cafe. So they actually paved the roads for us to kind of start it. But Meredith introduced us, and Claire and I hit it off in the beginning. And we've been working for over a year at all the details that it's going to take to become a large foster home for the cats, and help get them homes.
And talk about then the idea of a cat cafe, because the minute I heard about it, I said, "Wow, that's kind of a cool concept," you know. And then apparently Asheville is not the only place where they are. They are there throughout the country. Is that correct? Have you been to other cafes now?
We have.
Not all of them, but we've been
No,
to
no.
quite a few.
Have you? So so what happens at a cat cafe?
Do you want to go, Lisa?
Okay.
So you make a reservation online. Reservations are highly recommended for all cat cafes. They usually have a maximum visit of guests per hour, or 70 minutes. It depends on the cat cafe. Ours is going to be for 70 minutes, but the cat cafes we have visited, we paid a reservation fee online and went and visited the kitties for an hour. And usually they have, we will have coffee, tea, wine, beer,
Wait,
kombucha.
you mentioned this is for the cats?
This is for the people.
I was wondering. Okay. Oh, so the cats aren't going to get the good stuff, but okay.
Well,
So,
the cats will get the good stuff, but it's usually fish based and not really like wine, tea, beer, beer based.
so people go there and they have some refreshments, I guess, before they then get to play with the cats. Is that what happens?
Yes. Go ahead, Claire.
Yeah, you can, get coffee or a glass of wine, and you can bring it into the cat lounge, where, you can play with cats. You can just sit and enjoy the company of the cats, whoever you're with. The atmosphere is going to be very inviting, just a nice place to spend some time, depending on, the personality of the cats at the time, like the time of day it is. There might be cats running all around playing with each other, or maybe you get to just kind of sit with a cat who's napping and enjoy that very calming presence. So it's a really just enjoyable place to spend some time.
And based on the ones you've seen throughout the country, what's the reaction of people who go there or play with the cats or spend time with the cats? How do they feel about it?
I think everybody is just excited to be in a room full of cats that can do whatever they want. Like Claire said, they can run, jump, play, nap, drink water out of your cup. Whatever they want to do, they get to do. So it's really fun just to see the smiles on people's faces as they watch cats interact. We have been to 14, between the two of us, we've been to 14 different cat cafes in our research in developing our business model and our cat cafe model. And so we've kind of picked a little something from each one of them that we're going to plug into ours. You can't visit a bad cat cafe because all of them are passionate about helping homeless cats. So anytime you get the opportunity to visit a cat cafe, please do, because it's supporting animal rescue.
I was going to ask then, Claire, in terms of where the cats come from then?
So we are partnering with Brother Wolf, and that's typically the arrangement. Cat cafes have partnerships with shelters and or rescue organizations. So depending on the model, we will basically be a large foster organization. And we'll be in constant communication with our partners, about how the cats are doing. If there's any signs of any health issues, they're going to be immediately coming to address that as soon as possible. And, we really want to just do whatever we can to decrease the burden of, you know, shelters being completely overwhelmed. So yeah, and we'll, you know, all the cats are available for adoption. We're going to have a specific day for adoptions and for new cats coming in. So we're hoping for a really seamless process with them. I'm sure there will be some bumps in the road, but we're really excited to get there.
Well, what's really cool about the concept, as I hear you describing it, like you said, it's going to be good for the cats too, that rather than just being in cages all the time, they'll have a chance to interact and spend some time out in the public. So
Right.
what happens? So they'll be living, I guess, at your facility, or at least
Yes.
so that when people aren't there, it's open 24/7. The cats will be, that's where they'll hang. Is that
That
correct?
is where they'll live. And even though we won't be open 7 days a week,
Right.
we will be caring for them 7 days a week. So that it's just like they're living in a home where they constantly have us taking care of them, people visiting them. They'll be interacting with other cats. We'll have 2 smaller rooms for shy or special needs cats. So they won't all be living in a large community room. So we have some options to, you know, help cats that maybe have been in shelters or at Brother Wolf for a long time. We have an opportunity to help get them seen more by our guests. They'll be coming in 5 days a week.
And this sounds pretty cool. It's almost like I'd like to hang there, you know, or
Yeah.
I'd like to, I could just stay there, you know, for a couple of days to
Yes,
have
yes.
some time off. So when you get them, so you'll get the cats from Brother Wolf. What do you see, and based on some of the visits you've gone to, what's typical turnaround time, or how long are they in a cat cafe?
A lot of times it's, you know, a week or even less. I think that and one thing that is really great with social media is I see a lot of times, because we obviously follow a lot of cat cafes all over the country and all over the world. And if a cat's been there for a month or more, oftentimes, you know, they'll make a post really like highlighting all the great qualities of this cat. And, you know, it really tugs at your heartstrings. And I've seen a lot of cats then, like, you get an update 2 days later and they've been adopted and are so happy in their new home. So really, like, from what we've seen, it's pretty incredible how quickly a lot of the times the cats are getting adopted. And that's what we're really hoping for, so that we can get as many cats as possible into homes.
Yeah. Leah Craig told me, I interviewed her maybe about a month ago, and I was amazed that she said that the average turnaround time for a cat is 2 weeks. You know, I would have thought they'd be around for a long time, but that's pretty cool.
I
And-
know.
And then, so all of a sudden now, you're kind of increasing the chances for cats, because now they're going to have, how many cats will you have at one time, did you say?
Between 12 and 18.
Yeah, but I mean, that's pretty nice, so that people, rather than seeing one cat at a time, or one time in a cage, or they have a very lovely setup for the cats, but it's still a cage. Here they'll be able to be running around and bopping around, and you can actually get a real feel for what a cat is like if you visit a cat cafe.
Exactly.
Have you seen, from the 14 you visited, or the number you visited, have you seen, or did they tell you that they get a good number of adoptions?
We see that on their social media page more than we have during our visits there. Because like Claire said, we follow them on social media, and each time a cat gets adopted, they post a picture and like the number of cats that they've adopted. So it is very successful. It's a very good avenue for getting cats exposure who need homes.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's also very good, I think, for Brother Wolf, because again, they constantly are having a problem where do you put the cats, and they're looking for foster homes. So it's an opportunity to foster 12 to 18 simultaneously. So they're probably very excited about it too. In terms of the construction process, talk about how long it's taken, and you were mentioning off the air some of the people have helped you on this. So you had the idea to get this cat cafe started when in Asheville, in 2020, I guess, initially, right?
It was actually in April of 2021, I believe, that we
Right.
met.
Mhm.
And so you wanted to open the business. We were still in COVID. When did you get the idea from having an idea to then having an actual physical facility, and then talk about how you found the physical facility.
Sure. Go ahead, Claire.
Well, Lisa first reached out about a space in Biltmore Village, and we got connected with a commercial realtor. There is zoning already, which we found out quickly in our research. So we did have to look in the central business district, so pretty much downtown. Otherwise, we would have had to go through the process of having it rezoned, the Cat Cafe. So there weren't too many options downtown that we looked at other than our space. I think it was just very fortuitous that as we were looking, this space right downtown opened up, and it's got two sides. It's got a great amount of space, a lot of foot traffic. And then, we just went through the process of working through the lease and making sure it was a good fit and it would be a good location for us. And we just recently signed the lease in June.
Very nice.
Yes.
And talk about where the place is located.
So we will be downtown Eagle Street, 10 suites 10 and 12. They're side by side, like Claire said. They're connected via 3 steps on the inside. We would like to thank Eric Ingstrom with Whitney Commercial, who helped us find the space, and Pack Square Collection, which we are now a part of downtown, where we will be leasing our building. So we will actually be right across the street from Limones, like Claire
Okay.
said, right in the middle of downtown action. It's very exciting.
Yeah, so right off Biltmore, for people that know Mass General, we're basically right across the street.
Oh wait, so I know Mass General, and you're just down the street then?
So we're on Eagle, so we're off
Gotcha.
Biltmore, but if you just cross the street, you basically.
Okay, I know,
Right.
well, yeah, great location downtown.
Yes, it is.
And so how long then, so 2021, you decided to go ahead with this. Describe then kind of what you had to do each step of the way. So you had to get the lease set up, and you got that going now. And then the building and construction of that, how was that process for you so far?
Well, our property owners need to approve what we want to do as far as a build out. So we've worked with an architect, John Yorko, and who has been fabulous, and our engineer, Gus Sims, who has put together our mechanical engineering plan. Sineth Construction will be our builders, and they are turning in the plans to the city this week. And so fingers crossed, the city will approve our plans pretty quickly and we can start the build out process.
And how long will that take, the build-out process?
We don't know as of yet, but we're estimating 60 to 90 days.
Okay, and
It'd be
so,
great if it was less, but.
Yes.
so
Things
looking,
always take
again,
time.
we don't have an exact date, but ballpark, when do you see this opening? When are you shooting for?
Hopefully,
October,
Yeah.
Probably November would be great. I mean, October would be great. The sooner the better, but realistically, November probably.
Now, let me ask you, the both of you, had you ever had any experience in this type of thing before, starting a business from scratch and then doing all these steps? Had that been in either of your backgrounds,
Not me.
Lisa?
well, my husband is a dentist and he had his own private practice, which he had bought from a previous dentist. So we didn't actually start it up, but we've had experience running a business. But again, we've been in the animal rescue world for like 24 years. So I knew we wanted to do something after dentistry that had to do with animals. So even Claire, being an occupational therapist, she kind of has a little bit of setting up her own schedules. It's kind of a business but working for somebody else. So she has skills and talents that are going to tie into this cat cafe.
And one of
Thank
the amazing things, I think, is the fact that, first of all, somehow you met each other, the two of you.
I know.
And at least it seems on the air here that you click well. I mean, you seem to be on the same ballpark in terms of putting this together.
Yeah, I would definitely say so.
Because I'd say, Claire,
Pretty
too,
amazing.
same thing it is, because in terms of life, have you ever worked in a partnership or worked with anybody in a similar kind of thing like this?
No.
Because it's really kind of a cool thing to do if it clicks. If it doesn't click, yeah,
Right.
that's a whole thing unto itself. Now you mentioned, Lisa, your husband, is he going to be helping you out in this at all?
I'm sure both of our husbands will probably be helping with transport of cats back and forth from our cafe from time to time. But they do have their own professions. Both my husband Kevin and Claire's husband Nick have their own professions, but I'm sure they'll be helping us all they can and hanging out with us when they want to.
Okay, and explain, if you would, Claire, the idea of the cafe part of it. So I understand the cat part of it. So people can come here also for what's going to be happening in the cafe.
Yeah, so we will have coffee, tea, beer, wine, things like kombucha. We'll have water. We're a really big emphasis we have is we want to be as sustainable as possible. So we're not planning on having like water bottles, but we will have filtered water. And then we are going to have our own merchandise, which we're really excited about. And we also are going to have some local art and jewelry. And we want everything to be made in the USA. So that's a really important facet for us as well. So yeah, when you enter, there will be a check-in place, as well as place to, order drinks. We'll also have prepackaged food like cookies, muffins, stuff like that. We'll have, a couple chairs that if you just come in and want to relax for a little bit, or you're waiting for your reservation. And yeah, I think it'll just be a really nice place to either just spend some time or have it be the, first part of your experience at Cats at Play Cafe.
I'll ask Lisa and I'll ask Claire as well. What gave you the idea of working with homeless cats? In terms of, you could have done lots of things aside from what you were doing professionally. How did you come up with the concept you wanted to help homeless cats?
Well, basically, we have known about the homeless pet population, since we become adults. And thankfully, over the past 20, 25 years, the homeless pet population has declined
Oh, is it?
a lot, thanks to Best Friends out in Utah. They have pioneered the No More Homeless Pets initiative. It's actually called the No Kill Initiative. And it is working with shelters and communities to help implement life-saving tools and resources, because it all has to happen within the community that the homeless pets are. So just knowing that other cat cafes existed in the United States and what their model was, we kind of went by what they have, but knowing that we are supporting and joining the no kill mission, that every cat or kitten that we bring in and foster opens up a space for a brother wolf to take in another cat or kitten. So fostering is a huge part of helping the homeless cat population.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, and the other thing, Claire, which I find amazing, is that there are so many cats in Asheville. In other words, we just mentioned off the air that this great Facebook group was Asheville Cat Weirdos.
Right.
But I mean, there are a lot of people in that who are part of that group. It's like thousands of people.
Like 14,000, yeah.
Something I couldn't believe that. What's the I also wonder too, in terms of the cat population. I didn't realize that there's so many cats, I guess, in Asheville, and also dogs in Asheville as well. I did some research on this. Do you know the figure? What percentage of people, for example, own cats in Asheville? Do you know, or have you ever seen that?
I don't
I do
know.
not.
That'd be a very interesting thing to research.
Because the stat I saw years ago, Claire, when I was with, I don't know, I was involved in the school leadership at Asheville, but I found out that 70% of the Asheville population own either a cat or a dog. I was amazed it was that high. But, more than 2/3 of somebody out there is going to own a cat or a dog. And I guess a last question, we'll talk about what you folks do in terms of dealing with this. But one of the great things is the idea of these aren't then homeless cats, or your whole goal is to get homeless cat a home, as opposed to talk about like feral cats, or do feral cats come into this play at all?
Actually, they do. Do you want to talk about the TNR aspect of shelters and community outreach projects, Claire?
Yeah, so a big part of that TNR, TN, trap, neuter, vaccinate, release is, not every cat necessarily the best place for them is in a home. I mean, that would be ideal in a perfect world. But another huge aspect is controlling the population. So getting these cats that are feral, trapping them, they get the clipped ear, making sure that they're healthy, treating them, getting them vaccinated. And if their temperament is conducive to it, you might be able to find someone who has the patience to foster them. And Lisa has cats that were feral, so she can speak more to that. But just a huge aspect of this is trying to curb the overpopulation of animals in general.
Lisa said the same question too. So you have some
Sure.
feral cats, or work feral cats?
Yes, actually, 3 of the 4 of the cats we have the tipped ear and were trapped by a dear friend of ours who lives in Landrum, South Carolina, where they don't have as many resources as we have here in Buncombe County. Buncombe County is considered a no-kill community,
Right.
which means the animals that enter into the shelters and rescue organizations, that percent is 90% or higher as to the amount of lives that are saved. So Greenville area is not at that no-kill number yet. So my friend Jenna actually stays out all night, does the wildlife camera, traps kittens, feral kittens, stray kittens that have been just abandoned and are just living on the side of the road. She traps them, takes them to the cat care clinic in Greenville, has them spayed, neutered. And if, like Claire said, if they're trapped young enough and they're seem like they can be socialized pretty quickly, we can get them into homes where they can start learning to become house cats. Otherwise, they're put back into the communities and they are kept by generous people who feed community cats. It is another part of rescue that is very important to the cat overpopulation, is caring for community cats, which Brother Wolf obviously has a program for that as well.
And I should use the term too. I like that term a lot more. Community cats as opposed to feral
Community
cats is
right.
really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Claire,
Right.
we're looking to open sometime in November. If folks want to find out information now though about you, or see how you guys are doing, what's the best bet?
So we are all over online. We are on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Cats at Play Cafe. We are also on Facebook at Cats at Play Cafe Asheville, and we have a website. So that's catsatplaycafeasheville.com. And we try and post as much as we can, definitely updates on construction timeline. And then also just in the interim, fun, interesting cat facts and videos and all sorts of stuff like that, resources, whatever we can share that we think will make a difference and, make our followers smile.
Aside from me, I guess, as well as my wife, who've been bugging you for at least the last month or two.
She's not bugging us, and she's at the top of our list to call
Oh
when we're
boy,
ready to open.
she can't wait. I think I told you, or even if it can be arranged, want to have her birthday party there.
Yes, we hope to do that. She's going to be our first birthday party.
I'm telling
Tell
you,
Cynthia that. She's our first birthday party.
Hold that, because she's even willing to postpone her birthday. She says she wants to wait until you're open, but she can't wait because it's all she's been talking about. So what do you want for your birthday? This is what she wants. She wants to have a party with all her friends, her cats. So that's going to be cool. And I'll give you, Lisa, one more chance. Just repeat the contact information. If folks want to get in touch with either you on any of the social media, best bet was what? What are the
So follow us on Instagram and Facebook Cats at Play Cafe Asheville. And our website is catsatplaycafeasheville.com. And you can sign up for our newsletter, which we will be putting out monthly newsletters, but we will be posting pretty much weekly content on our Facebook and Instagram pages.
Okay. And I really look forward to, hopefully sooner the better, as Claire said, sometime October, November, because I can't have my wife's birthday until you're open. So
I know.
We're looking forward to it.
You just won't get a year older until we open.
Great line. Anyway, I want to thank you both for being my guests on the second half hour of the BLAINESWORLD show. Also to Dr. Ron Solomon, my guest the first half hour, and to Cappy Tossetti, my producer. I look forward to having you join me next time you see us on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And thanks, folks. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Blaine. We appreciate it.
Okay.